It's episode 40, another milestone here for Beyond the Blast Doors. Thank you so much for taking time to watch the episode. All three of us finally together in the new studio. I'll give you a fist bump for that. David Gilbert, he is Jesse Buck, I'm David, and we're excited to be here. We have so much to get to because we want to make sure we had a full episode because, my goodness, it's the first time in a month where all three of us are together. First things first, I want to congratulate Star Wars The Last Jedi, including RIAN Johnson, Mark Hamill, and Star Wars Rebels Dave Filoni, all taking home Saturn Awards recently. So that is one of the most prestigious awards in the sci-fi world. So congratulations to all those involved with making those, making the movie and the TV series so successful. Let's dive right into it. Real Talk. Real Talk, the segment where if it's Star Wars and it's on the big screen, we're going to talk about it. David, you're looking at me. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm excited for the first topic because I don't know a whole lot about it.
So it's exciting. We're learning, it's new information within the last couple of weeks, but more and more information becomes available about it. So we just want to bring it up right up front. George Lucas does reveal what he wanted to do with episodes 7, 8, and 9. And if you watch the Clone Wars, which the three of us have, maybe you have at home, we actually got a teaser of what he was hoping to do with 7, 8, and 9 in the Clone Wars. We have this quote here. He was actually doing an interview with James Cameron for his Story of Science Fiction series. And George Lucas said the next 3 Star Wars films were going to get into the microbiotic world. But there's a world of creatures that operate differently than we do. I call them the Wills. And the Wills are the ones who actually control the universe. They feed off the Force.
So is this like midichlorian territory then that we're getting into if he would have made these movies?
This is like even more intense than the midichlorians. This is like an over-explanation even more so of how the Force operates. Because now we're not saying the Force is what binds and operates the galaxy. We're actually saying it's the Wills. They do this through the Force.
So I've always felt the midichlorians were kind of baloney. So would this have pissed me off as much as the midichlorians did?
I don't know, because here's the thing. He's saying this is what 7, 8, and 9 would have involved, but there's no way the entire trilogy would have just been around this, what he's saying, microbiotic world. You still would have had Jedi. You still would have had the dark side. You still would have had some kind of resistance, rebellion, empire, first order, something like that. There would have been some great threat, but this would have been a aspect of that sequel trilogy. If you think back to the prequel trilogy, we got midichlorians, but it was a 3-minute piece of dialogue.
And thankfully they don't talk about it for the next 8 pieces of the story.
Right. So, I mean, that's, again, the benefits of starting in the middle of the story and then going back to tell that early story. Jesse, when you hear this, these words from George Lucas, does it excite you that you could have gone further into the lore of the Force in the sequel trilogy had Lucas helmed it?
For me, it's exciting because just finding out what George's insight was, what he kind of had planned, where to take, the story and everything. And I kind of have to agree with you. I think it wouldn't have just focused on on that. That would have been like a part of a larger scheme of things,
right?
Like the Resistance, or maybe even.
It would have been underlying, and we know through the Last Jedi art book that came out, which is canon, they actually showed a couple renderings approved by George Lucas when he was in the process of getting Episode 7 together, and we know that Luke was going to be mentoring a young female. We know that character eventually became Daisy Ridley's Rey. So it's interesting to learn more and more about what George was envisioning. I've been pretty open about it on the show. I wish he would have written 7, 8, 9. They would have had someone come in and direct it. Definitely different than what we have gotten with JJ's Force Awakens, Johnson's The Last Jedi.
I mean, there are things that I love about the Disney movies, and there are definitely things that I've blasted on this show. But right now, if it's a microbiotic world and things that are completely changing the way we view the Force, I'd almost rather take Canto Bight than the Wills.
I could not. I would not. And again, I think that the way to understand this is George was not going to do 3 movies just about the Wills. But there was going to be some exploration into that, which we did see a little bit hinted at the end of that Clone Wars series. We started talking about the son and the daughter and how they worked in tandem, how they brought the balance and then, disrupted the balance of the Force. So I think it was really interesting. And if you haven't already, go watch the Clone Wars. We'll mention it later, but there is going to be a nice honoring of the Clone Wars series 10-year anniversary at San Diego Comic-Con, so that's going to be really cool. Will not be going, but hopefully they stream it.
I wish I could go. I really do.
If you have, we're going to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
And that's probably better. If you have any thoughts about George Lucas's vision for 7, 8, and 9, the 7, 8, and 9 that he wanted to tell, would you rather see that? Are you happy with the Disney trilogy that we're getting right now? Let us know down in the comments below. And, of course, thank you so much for watching here on YouTube. Second topic of the question takes us to Jon Favreau's TV series, where we believe shooting is rumored to start either fall or winter of this year. And that you would think would make sense, right? Because we're under the impression that this series is going to help launch Disney's streaming service in 2019. We know, going back to the Solo, we have a cat running around the set right now. We know that the premiere of Solo, Jon Favreau confirmed that he had already written half the scripts to season 1. Jesse, you hear that shooting could be starting soon for this TV series. Does it excite you? Do you think that you're going to be... could this really re-engage and re-excite the fan base, this TV series?
Yeah, I'm excited because, I mean, John, I mean, we know him best for, in terms of Star Wars, for his voice acting of Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars, which, I mean, everybody knows I'm Mandalorian buff and everything. And I just love that, aspect and everything. So, I mean, I think he has a very unique perspective. I mean, having worked with, Dave and, Filoni, and probably even, having talks with, with George and everything, I think he has probably a great insight on, where to maybe take this series. And yeah, it'd be a great way to start off their streaming service. It'd be one of those like, shut up, take my money, moments, So, yeah, I'm optimistic.
I'm imagining a Jungle Book quality TV series that we're going to get here with Jon Favreau at the helm, and that really excites me. We know it takes post Return of the Jedi, which is a part of the Star Wars timeline. If you're a original trilogy fan, this should really excite you because it's going to flesh out. I hope Luke Skywalker somehow makes an appearance in it. My hope would be that it gives you what you were hoping to see in The Last Jedi, because then it kind of would be more in correlation with what we got in the Expanding Universe. That's we can follow the conversation in just a second. But first, David, are you excited for this thing to get going? Do you feel like it should have happened by now?
No, I mean, I don't know how long it typically takes to go from writing to actually filming it. So if it's because it's just been within the last month that he said he's halfway done with it. So maybe he's 3/4 of the way done now, but how long can they take that? Does it take to take that first script and then do costumes and sets and casting? So to me, this sounds rather quick to do, but I also I'm also very excited because Favreau was the one who, with Iron Man, kicked off the whole MCU.
Right.
And now he's going to kick off the streaming service for us. So with all these other streaming services that are coming out, like DC is going to launch their streaming service, BBC just launched theirs. It'll be interesting, especially with DC and Disney launching about the same time, who's going to have the better content right out the door. My money's on Disney.
I would say so. And some things that we don't know, we have no idea who's attached to this as far as cast or crew. So those are pieces of news that we expect to have here in the very near future. None of that's been announced. We don't know how long these episodes are going to be. They could be 22-minute episodes. They could be an hour episode. They could be an hour and a half. We have no idea. These are pieces of information that we're going to be developing over time. But what we do know is that if you wanted someone to helm this project, Jon Favreau, it's hard to beat that. There's no one else on television. I guess J.J. Abrams, but I guess he's kind of committed, isn't he?
He's a little committed.
Yeah, so this is a really good situation for fans. I think you should be excited about production getting underway with this.
The timeline, they said it was shortly before Return of the Jedi, right?
After
Return of the Jedi, okay.
So, and that's also where we're getting the Star Wars Resistance animated series as well, right? Okay. So we're now starting to explore there. When we talked several months ago, we were saying how the time period right after Return of the Jedi would be interesting. That time period in between A New Hope and Empire would be fun, which we got a lot of that in the comics. Doubt we're going to see anything in between Empire and Return for a while, but excited to see where they go here post Return of the Jedi. I want to see Luke. I want to see Luke gathering these Force-sensitive people, these sentient beings, because that's kind of if there's a positive to take away from me for Last Jedi is we see him redeemed. He sacrifices. He inspires the galaxy, right? But now, if you can go in this Favreau series and you get to see Luke Skywalker with a Padawan or two, I mean, we're talking before Ben Solo here, and he's rebuilding the Jedi Order, and you get to see him in battle for some reason, that would make me happy, because I just want to see that era, and you know. If Mark Hamill could be involved with it, you still have him around. You could do a little de-aging with him. They're going to do The Irishman with Robert De Niro, I should say, and they're going to de-age him like 30, 40 years. So it's like you can knock 10 or 15 off of Luke, right?
I think so, yeah.
So anything else you guys want to talk about that?
I just think that's a really prime territory to really do anything right now. I mean, Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series, it's
Fantastic.
kind of the, fantastic series, takes place, right after, Return of the Jedi. Battlefront 2's single-player campaign takes place right after, and it was fantastic. So like, if this is where it's targeted and everything, I'm excited, because it's going to be mass chaos, because the Empire's in disarray. The crime syndicates are probably going, yay!
Yeah, we're going to try and get some money here, try and get some control of land.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because here in on Earth, we'd be like, yeah, we want to control like that country, and like in Star Wars, they want to control like planets. I don't know. I just thought of that. Kind of bizarre. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Are you excited about this news that we're just getting closer and closer to seeing Jon Favreau's TV series on the Disney streaming service? Also, keep that in mind when we talk about staying on target. There could be some more new developments with that streaming service. Number 3 on the list here, James Mangold's Boba Fett movie seeking a 2020 filming start for 21 release. Now, this is a rumor that we wanted to address, because this kind of happened simultaneously when we had this whole debacle of standalone movies have been scrapped. And the only thing that they're focusing on is Episode 9, Star Wars Resistance, and Favreau's streaming TV series. And then ABC ultimately was the news outlet that, because their parent company is Disney, they're able to say, listen, these movies are still in development. They're just being slowed down. Episode 9 right now is the priority. And, of course, you have the TV animated series, the streaming service. Those are full steam ahead. Everything else is kind of getting reassessed. Folks, we know we want to see a Boba Fett movie, but do you think this rumor really has any legitimacy anymore? Do we think that the standalone movies altogether are going to be we're just not going to see them?
This is the thing, and this has actually really been frustrating me, because, there's been a lot of debate around, obviously Solo, being unquote a flop at the box office.
320,000 or whatever million, I should say, is still a flop.
Every single person that I've talked to who actually went and saw it loved it. Mm-hmm. So I really feel like the people who boycotted this film over their frustration with, Last Jedi. Yeah, I really feel like they missed out.
They did, but I think it's such a small portion. I think a lot of people ultimately didn't see this movie because they didn't know about it. There was a report that just came out saying that Disney's marketing budget for Solo was slashed. All resources were being invested for Infinity War. You were not going to take anything away from Infinity War. I think we mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
Bob Iger, Disney Lucasfilm had communicated with, like, Target, for example. The end aisles had to be Avengers merchandise. Solo was not allowed to take over the end aisles, which is what catches everyone's eye to enter the aisle. They weren't allowed to get that till like the week or 10 days before the movie release. Everything was so late. Their marketing budget had been cut because of how expensive the reshoots were. Granted, Disney said, we'll write you a blank check. The movie just has to hit by May. I think the marketing and placement in May instead of December cost them. I still think you're right, though. Those who went and saw that movie enjoyed it. I've had people tell me that they think it's their favorite Star Wars movie.
I can't wait for it to be out on video, honestly.
Not that good.
It's not, I don't think it, to me, it's not that good. But I'm happy that someone out there enjoyed that movie that much. I cannot wait for it coming out on a home release Blu-ray. Going to be great. Last Jedi on Netflix now. I've watched it once, enjoyed it. It was nice to watch it. Can't tell why it still ticked me off, but it's still nice to be able to watch it from the comfort of my own home.
Admit it, David. You hit the skip button on that Netflix controller.
I went to the bathroom, made myself a sandwich, and drank a beer. David, as far as like all the standalones, I just feel like we're at this point where it is just a slowed down thing. Maybe these standalones are just put on the shelf for now.
I don't think so, because you look at the two we've already had with Rogue One and Solo. Rogue One was a brand new plot that we knew nothing about until they started releasing information.
Kind of. We knew the end game.
We knew the ending. Solo was a movie that nobody wanted because nobody wanted somebody who wasn't Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. On both of those movies, they took a risk with the directors, with Gareth Edwards for Rogue One and Lord and Miller for Solo. And, of course, 2 of them got fired, and the other one had to do massive reshoots with the new director. Well, I guess both of them had to do massive reshoots with the new director. So if you look at the 2 that are coming out that they've kind of announced but haven't really announced, with Boba Fett and James Mangold directing that, Mangold's a pretty well-established director. Yeah. He's not a risk. You look at his most recent comic book film, Logan, and that's solid. I mean, that is a solid movie.
Gets me right in the feels.
But James Mangold also has another movie coming up right now that he's about to start work on.
He's got 2 of them coming out between now and 2021.
So that's looking very unlikely.
For a couple years.
Yeah.
So if we get this, which I still think we'll get it, I think it'll be a very good movie. I could see it being a 2021, 2022 release.
See, but then you're getting the territory when you would expect to start seeing Rian Johnson's new trilogy and the series of movies that we know absolutely nothing about with Benioff and Weiss.
And I can see them going back to 2 movies a year.
They've never been 2 movies a year.
Yeah,
You got Last Jedi and then you got Solo. I get that.
I can see them being released within 12 months of each other.
I don't. I think if anything, there was a rumor that was never truly confirmed by Lucasfilm, but it said, Lucasfilm is considering not going to a multi-film movie method, that they want to just do 1 a year. It's not the MCU. It's not been constructed that way. The MCU is so complex and been so woven together ever since 2008's Iron Man. Kathleen Kennedy is basically going, oh, that's a great story about, when they approached Disney about Rogue One. Oh, that's a great story. You're going to do that. And then Ryan's going to do Episode 8. And then you have this idea for Solo, Lawrence. All right, well, go ahead and do that because you helped us out and saved Force Awakens. There's no plan. And I think that what is happening now with Lucasfilm, because you have the uncertainty internally, you have the chaos online, you have a divided fan base. I think now is the time where you really reevaluate and you make a plan. This is what we're doing, and inform the fans. It's not about being entitled, and the fans deserve it, but there needs to be a clear, this is where we're going in the next 6 years. This is what you can come to expect. We're not telling you anything more than that, but here's where you can expect to go. Because what they've done wrong with the sequel trilogy is the fact that you get Force Awakens, you get a completely different movie with Last Jedi, and a lot of the good stuff with The Force Awakens just got obliterated. I mean, we were probably not going to see the Knights of Ren in 9 now because you just can't bring them in time based on what we got with The Last Jedi. So that's my 2 cents on that. We have another rumor that I want to bring up real quick. It sounds like Billy D. Williams is getting on an Atkins diet, or he's getting on some kind of...
he needs something.
He's changing his lifestyle a little bit. Rumor is he's going to be in Episode 9. Do you like the idea, David? Do you need Lando in Episode 9?
I don't need Lando in Episode 9, but after Donald Glover's success in the role with the Solo movie, I could see why they have an appeal to bring him back, especially now that they've killed off Luke, they've killed off Han, Carrie Fisher's passed away, so they're probably still looking for some tie back to the original trilogy, and I could see this being it. So my question would be, is this something that that Abrams had wanted to do, that he planned to do, or is this something that they're throwing in just because they still want something to go back to that original? It'll
be cool to see if he's, this continued leader for the, rebellion and the resistance. Maybe he's involved with the Republic and he leaves the Republic gig to come to the Resistance. I don't know how it's going to work, but Jesse, do you want Lando in Episode 9?
I'm fine with it as long as he's not wearing Han's clothes.
That would just be weird now, right?
That would be really weird.
I think it would be welcomed, especially for what David brings up, is the fact that a lot of the OT characters are now gone. Either they were intentionally removed from the story or the unlikely tragic death of Carrie Fisher. So I think it would be nice to see him back. It would be nice to see him have a role. Just because you bring him back, you don't have to kill him. You can let Lando go for a little bit if you wanted to.
What he's actually been doing is working on a very secret cloning project. He went back to Bespin and retrieved Luke's hand. And
there's 2 things that I don't think we're going to get in Episode 9. I don't think we're going to get the explanation about how they found Luke's lightsaber. I do not think you're going to get the Knights of Ren. Those are the 2 things. I'm willing to go like 80% above, we're not going to get them.
Probably, if anything, a book. I want to say some sort of book that fills in, those empty spots.
Knights
there.
of Ren could have easily been the second. Last Jedi could have easily been the Knights of Ren get involved with Kylo, and they're hunting down the Resistance.
It's very frustrating because, again, reading the Aftermath series, there is basically this cult that's out there collecting, dark side items. They're like basically worshipers of the dark side, and I kind of feel like this was like the precursor group to the Knights of Ren.
Maybe, because if you look at the timeline, it's way too early. Knights of Ren doesn't kick in, we believe does not kick in until after Kylo fights back, Luke destroys the temple, leaves with the select few, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're still like 10 to 15 years
but
of
again,
separation.
That's what we're missing. I mean, is it linked? Is it not linked? I mean, that's like personal question, like for me when it comes as like.
And that's what you want as someone who's really
want to know.
Someone who's really invested in the lore too.
Yeah.
Real quick here, end of Real Talk, and a great conversation so far. The last topic I want to talk about is Ron Bergman, the producer of Rian Johnson's Last Jedi and also the new trilogy, just talking about, working on that trilogy and how it's still in this pre-production phase. That's why I don't think we're going to see, a movie from Rian Johnson in 2020. I honestly think that there's a chance that 2020 goes by without a Star Wars film. I really do think that's going to happen for reasons we'll talk about later in the show. But you guys, you've read this article, and there's just a couple of observations about how they are in the pre-production phase. They have a lot of new ideas, a real massive emphasis on new characters, new world, new everything is new. I think that's kind of important because I think a Rian Johnson telling a Star Wars story in the fashion of Looper would be really exciting. It'd be something great for the audience. See him play with Star Wars that's not the OT, not characters that we have a developed relationship with. Maybe from the beginning, that's where he could have been used, since we didn't get the Looper Last Jedi that we had hoped. So, Jesse, let's start with you. You read this article. What stuck out to you the most?
For me, it's just one of those things where, he's saying, it's still in the early phases. They're still like basically panning everything out. And, and again, David kind of mentioned this with some of the, the FAVREAU'S thing. Costuming, like everything has to be put in place and everything. And yeah, so it could be 2-3 years before we even see it.
Where, if we were to guess, where is this happening on the timeline? Like, is he doing Knights of the Old Republic? Is Benioff and Weiss doing the Old Republic, and he's doing something even more new? Like, is he going beyond Episode 9? Is he going into the future? Are we going to continue to expand this timeline?
If I'm given the choice between the two of those, I think it would make more sense for Benioff and Weiss to do something Old Republic, just because of their experience with Game of Thrones.
Right, that makes a lot logical
something
sense.
More gritty, more Wild West, more kingdom versus kingdom, pirate group versus Jedi versus early Sith, and I could see this franchise taking place further in the future.
Cool.
The hope has gone out. There's really no Force users anymore, and here we find a Force-sensitive kid.
Man.
Maybe he picks up a broom as he's sweeping a stable on Canto Bight.
I really think that the biggest mistake that they have made... I want more lightsabers. It's something that David talks about all the time. Mm-hmm. I want more lightsabers in Star Wars. At the core of Star Wars, it's about lightsabers. It's about the Force. It's about...
space wizards.
Yeah, good versus evil.
Laser swords, you mean?
The Resistance Rebellion stuff is cool, but... it's really just an average war movie at that point. Mm-hmm. When you add in the lightsaber, maybe the most iconic film weapon of all time, now that's an epic story. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I want to see more of. I want to see a lot of lightsabers. I want to see a lot of Jedi. I want to see a lot of Sith on a battlefield slaughtering each other. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay if it gets PG-13 or a little even higher than that. I mean,
I want to see a better version of the Battle of Geonosis.
Yeah, I mean, I want the Sith Wars. I mean, if you're going to go back and really do Old Republic and go even, beyond that, well, if you're going by Legends timeline now, wasn't the Sith War like 1,000 before the Battle of Yavin? I think it was like 1,000 before.
I can Google
and Knights of the Old Republic was like 2,000 prior?
Well, I mean, Knights of the Old Republic actually... There's a lot of debate in terms of whether, canonical and whatnot, because, there's the MMO that roughly takes place 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Right.
The Old Republic era, also referred to as the Sith era, takes place 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin.
And that's the other problem too.
Until 1,000 years BBY.
It's just like this timeline is just such a large.
Yeah, there's 24,000 years of the Old Republic.
And again, and that's where, the canonical sense is up in the air.
Which is maybe why it's great for like newer fans that the Disney thing happened and you start all over the canon, because it's a lot easier to jump in now than trying to sort through that kind of mess. I mean, you saw how we were trying to sift through it just now. For someone who's just starting their journey in the Star Wars fandom, it's probably for the best that we can kind of have a cleaner line out there.
The video games for Knights of the Old Republic take place about 3,900 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Okay, cool.
Honestly, I would say that the best way to view the Old Republic would be through the BioWare, Knights of the Old Republic
I'd
games.
go by the game for sure.
Yeah, because I mean that's what made that time era, popular in the lore and everything. So that's what I would expect, and at least if they do go that way, that's the time frame that I would want.
Well, we want to know what you think also about Rian Johnson's new trilogy. Where do you think that's going to happen on the canon timeline? Let us know down in the comments below what you want. And that's going to do it for Real Talk. We dive in now into Pages, Pixels, Pieces. And of course, this segment brought to you by our good friends and official sponsor, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. Proud to have our local comic shop as our official sponsor. Comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. The Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. Last week, Poe Dameron number 28 hit store shelves. We know that we're going to issue 31 is the end. Poe Dameron ends in September, and you know what? Because we're going to brag about this a little bit. So what happens is it comes out in the Marvel solicitations that the series is ending. And so I didn't know if this was a thing where it's like the natural end, or if this was a thing where it wasn't making the sales and it was getting cut. So I tweet out at Charles Soule. I'm like, hey, I don't know. I want an answer. And a couple people came in and were like, you should know better. Natural ending, that's how it usually is. But Charles was actually super cool about it. He tweeted right back at us. He goes, yeah, it's ending. There's a weird conflation between canceled and ending. They aren't the same thing. Sometimes it's for sales. Sometimes it's a story. Sometimes other things. This is about the story ending in a nice, tidy place based on everything else happening in Star Wars. So I want to say thank you to Charles Soule for responding to our tweet. That was really cool. It was really fun, too, because it was like the one time where like we kind of like broke something, which, on a small scale, but still, it was cool to see like Star Wars Explained, Collider, StarWarsNewsNet.com using our tweet to report on something. So that was really fun. Poe Dameron 28 is cool. We're in that post-Last Jedi era. What I think is been fun about this is you've seen the development of a relationship between Leia and Poe throughout this series, and that's why I would probably recommend this series overall, is the fact that it fills in some nice blanks. I do like how Poe Dameron, even though we're in this like post-Last Jedi, we're still doing these like flashbacks to kind of answer some questions that we've had.
Which I'm okay with, because by and large, just from the movies, I don't like Poe. I think he's a liability to the whole cause, and he's not a hero that we should all be looking up to. So it's nice to actually see him doing things that are good, that are actually helping the cause, instead of just getting X-Wings destroyed and data chips lost.
I actually feel like towards the end of The Last Jedi, that's really where, it seemed a little like rushed, but I mean, like he goes from basically sacrificing a whole bomber fleet to, no, we got to call, this isn't working, everybody pull back. He does actually start to display some positive leader, characteristics towards the end of the movie, which is really good.
I will say, going back and rewatching Last Jedi on Netflix, the beginning plays a lot better for me, like how defiant he is. I used to just be like, he's just dedicated to the cause. He wants to end the First Order, and I think the disapproval from Leia and his brashness, I think played a lot better on that next viewing. So still not my favorite Star Wars movie, but that did play better for me. So Poe Dameron 28, go check that out. I'm trying to think. The week before last, we had Thrawn number 5. David, I know you read that. You weren't here with us. Did you want to say anything about Thrawn number 5?
No, I mean, I haven't read the novel. The first couple issues of this I really liked. The last two have just been kind of so.
And again, I think that's only and not a slam, but you haven't finished Rebels. But if you did, and I think if you had a better understanding of Thrawn as a character, I think you'd be really into it.
It's not Thrawn that bothers me. It's not Vanto, because I kind of like him as a
You're
side
gonna say Price, isn't it?
It's General Price.
Well.
Like the entire third issue was about her. She's back trying to talk to her parents in this one, trying to figure out whose side they're on. I don't enjoy her as a character. I don't know if that's
That's why you need to finish Rebels.
That's why you need to finish Rebels. You need to so badly because it's all going to tie together. But yes, I like number 5. What I do like about it, again, is it takes a very thick Timothy Zahn written novel. It's hard to process. There's a lot in there. And it kind of cuts through all of it, trims the fat, and tells you exactly what the story is. So Jesse's going to read the novel, then he's going to read the comics, and he'll get back to us. David is so about the Thrawn series.
I'm loving the character Thrawn.
You are.
I love the fact that he's outrageously arrogant.
Kind of like you.
Yes, and I love that quality.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he's got his own personal little audience with Vanto, who's always right there, an intelligent man who just never seems to see what Thrawn does, and then suddenly it clicks for him. And then you have this revelation, wow, Thrawn's a genius. And he's kind of a dick about it. I love it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how Vanto continues to get brought up through the ranks a lot slower than you might expect. Thrawn, in a way, does kind of play him. He doesn't allow Vanto to see much beyond his nose. So I think that relationship is exciting to kind of watch and develop. Coming out this coming week, Star Wars number 4 adaptation, and we also have Star Wars number 50. It's incredible to think that that series that began in 2015 is at 50 issues. So really exciting to see what happens there. I'm spacing on the ARC title, but I think there's going to be several different cover variants for number 50, which will be exciting. I'm thinking there's a Mike Turner one. I could be mistaken. But it'll be kind of a cool milestone because
Hope Dies.
Hope Dies.
Yep, and it's part 1. So it's a new story arc, a great place to hop on.
Right. It's a great spot to hop on because we just finished the Mon Cala arc with 49. So great place to get jumped into, which would make sense. A good milestone issue.
Have you been reading The Last Jedi?
I have, yeah.
Is it staying pretty true to the movie, or are they throwing extra stuff in there that we should probably
Like
read?
Han's funeral?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because Jesse, you and I were talking about that on the last episode. Is the fact that I think what they do is they'll take a scene and they hint at what you saw in the movie, and then they'll give you an extra slice of it. So, like, what I always go to is the scene where Luke is giving the 3 lessons. And you have Luke go out on the cliff, and you don't see this in the movie, but in the comic, he goes out there and he has this inner monologue about how, I cut myself off from the Force, and what it cost me was the people that I love. And to me, I thought that was such a great Luke moment because Luke does love. Luke does emote. He has feeling. He cares about his compatriots. I mean, there's no doubt that he cares about Han and Leia and Chewie and the droids in Return of the Jedi when he goes up to the Death Star. He thinks that he's sacrificing himself in that moment for his friends to be successful. He's watching the space battle happen in the Emperor's Palace, And so that was like a very raw moment that I enjoyed. You also got him earlier, sharing sorrow for the loss of Han. Like, you get that in the comic. Moments I feel we should have gotten in the movie. And if you watch the behind the scenes and the extras with The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson makes comments about how he didn't feel like X, Y, and Z was valuable for the storyline, or the fans wouldn't really care about this. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. The more Luke you can give with us to better understand why you've taken the character there, the better. The more you can reinforce in the film and let the story unfold and explain why Luke has closed himself off and then reopen, the better. The continual defense on Twitter isn't doing it because it's not in the movie. So that's why I'm a big fan of this adaptation, because it really does expand the scene. It fleshes it out. Okay. It makes me care more about Luke. I'm not as annoyed by Rey. It's wonderful. It's something that the Rogue One adaptation did not do all that well. It was pretty much the same movie. So I would recommend, if you're not picking this one up, David,
start looking at it.
You should start looking at it because it rewards you. And that's how all this stuff should be. All these canon comics, novels, they should reward you for buying them. Jesse looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, it's just I was going to mention the Battlefront 2 storyline. There's a mission that you play as Luke. All the dialogue, all the cinematic part of it. He's very much just hope. Like it's just like what happened here. I mean, obviously this is 30 years down the road from that point to this point. I want to know, exactly what happened. What event happened?
Luke Skywalker saved Darth Vader.
And
somehow his nephew scared him so bad that he was going to murder him.
I need more. I need more to fill in, those gaps in the story.
Well, hopefully we get it. If you're reading those comics, let us know what you think. Are you excited for Star Wars number 50? Are there any variants that you're keeping an eye out for? Let us know down in the comments below. When I get the official list of the variants, I'll be sure to post that on the Facebook page, so that way people can check that out. Should be a good time. Also want to mention San Diego Comic-Con coming up. Del Rey has announced a new exclusive cover for Thrawn Alliances. This is the second novel in Timothy Zahn's, what we're assuming to be a trilogy. Well, Timothy Zahn is the writer. Okay. Thrawn is the character. Gotcha. Thrawn Alliances. And now when the novel was first released, we have a very slick Thrawn with Darth Vader in the background, saber activated. This exclusive for San Diego Comic-Con is Hayden Christensen back as Anakin, and a younger Thrawn in front. And there is an excerpt that came out as well to kind of give you this idea. And we're going to go, at least part of this novel is going to be a jump backwards in time, and we're going to experience Anakin and Thrawn's first encounter. Does that excite you to be able to go back and see how that happened? Because it was alluded to before the Clone Wars, or during the Clone Wars, that there was a meeting between him and Anakin. They had been on a mission before. Jesse, what do you think?
It is exciting, but again, I think it adds more into even just Anakin's own story, but it's going to add more into Thrawn, and then it'll explain hey, there was only a handful of people that theorized or guessed that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker, and
3 or 4 people.
It might give us insight, especially why did they keep that secret, kind of thing. Because the whole galaxy was basically told the Jedi are evil and everything. Like basically Palpatine, false news to everybody, into thinking that
you can say fake news. It won't offend me.
Into thinking that the Jedi Order betrayed everybody and everything. So it's just keeping that secret.
Right.
That's
and this. I don't feel like this is a spoiler because it was released as the first Thrawn excerpt. Thrawn knows who Vader is from the get-go. When he meets Darth Vader in an exchange, or he's referenced to, I should say, when he's meeting with the Empire or the Emperor in the first Thrawn novel, he knows who Vader truly is under that helmet. And so I'm excited to read this book because I think we're going to go back, we're going to experience those first encounters, and then jump back to the current moment on the timeline and see how these two work together, and if that's referenced in how a mechanical Vader, a broken Vader, responds to those memories being triggered. David, do you like the idea of us going back and playing in this Clone Wars era with Thrawn and Anakin? And also, what do you think about the cover? Because I think it looks stellar with Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker there on the cover. I don't know if he came back into model for that or if that's just art. I think it's just art. But cool to see his face on a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? It does not excite you?
I mean, it's a nice... if I cover up the left half of it...
Why would you cover
Thrawn
up?
looks really exciting.
Hayden Christensen's Anakin, that looked awesome. Say what you want about it, execution. Say what you want to say about George Lucas not really being able to work with an actor. The famous line, faster and more intense. That was what he would tell actors. Hayden Christensen, his look was awesome.
He ruined all 3 of the prequel trilogy for me.
He wasn't even in the first one.
I know, but he still ruined it.
Oh my gosh.
Worse than Jar Jar.
If you want to let us know what you think about the exclusive cover that we've shared with you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, be sure you let us know down in the comments below. And we want to remind you that we have a giveaway as we do every week, and we are waiting to confirm a winner for this past giveaway. It was 2 weeks. We're giving away 9 comics. We've reached out to the recipient, but we haven't heard back. And so before we announce them, we want to make sure that they can receive the books because our contests are U.S. only. But I want to thank our sponsors, Maplewood Fantasy Shop, as our sponsor, allowing us to give away Poe Dameron number 28, and also we might have a few more we're going to toss in there. But right now, this is the weekly giveaway, and I'm thankful for what they're able to do. Rumored was a variant, I think is what we talked about. So we'll see what we can get in there. But we have to say thank you, and we, of course, want to do a hashtag, an appropriate hashtag for this giveaway. And we talked a lot about San Diego Comic-Con. We've talked about the exclusives there. And I was wondering if it would be appropriate to do something in respect to Hayden Christensen, because he gets so much hate, but it is the Christensen Renaissance, Hayden Renaissance. I don't know. What do you think? Hashtag Hayden's back.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Hashtag Hayden's back. So that's what you're going to do. Hashtag Hayden's back. Down in the comments below, that's how you're going to enter the contest to win. We will spice up that giveaway, of course, but we just like to give away the comics every week. Let us know, by the way, down in the comments, what you think about the contest. Would you rather give us those? Would you rather us do like weekly bundles of the books that have come out this past week, or would it be more exciting if we were giving away 1 or 2 variants from that week? Do you like it weekly? Maybe we go bi-weekly. We have a milestone giveaway coming up. I think we're going to do 700.
Awesome.
So we're going to do that. So we're at 631 right now, which is awesome, but we want to wait and do a bigger one at 700. So help us get there. Spread the word about Beyond the Blast Doors. But one more time, thank our sponsors, Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri, for making this possible. Our local comic book shop as our official sponsor with comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. The Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving the St. Louis area since 1981. Hashtag Hayden's back. That's how you enter that contest, and we will be sure we announce that in the next couple of weeks. Stash it or blast it, gentlemen. This is the segment where we kind of just go round robin real quick about a few topics that we just don't want to spend a whole lot of time on, but we do want to address. First things first, we got hit up on Twitter about Kira, our new character from Solo, a Star Wars story, the double-crossing, triple-crossing lady. Question is she going to be Force sensitive?
Blast it.
Blasted.
I'm going to blast it as well.
Nope.
Kira, as you know, is now kind of like a mogul. She's kind of the leader of a crime syndicate. It's hard to explain who's really in charge in that relationship.
We'll
I
find out.
love the character, though. I did.
Yes.
Her counterpart, very horny. We also have in this segment, we have Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige. Nope, I read ahead. That's going to be in the next segment. We're going to talk about Lucasfilm files trademarks for the shelved Star Wars Detour series. We talked about this several months ago. This was like a parody series that like Lucas was tossing around.
Like a comedy that they announced in 2012.
A very Adult Swim-ish.
Well, it was Seth Green and Matthew Seinrick, who do Robot Chicken, who created this series back in 2012.
Right.
They've got 20 episodes that they say, maybe 30 episodes that are ready for release, another 10 or so that they're still working on.
See, I read somewhere that there were like 100 scripts made for this series. I mean, they had like 4 or 5 seasons. So I'd be interested to see how it was. And I think Billy D had even done some voiceover work for Lando. So it'd be kind of cool. What do you think? Blast or stash it?
Blast it.
Blast it?
Yeah.
Why?
But I don't know. I don't want a Star Wars show that's like comedic nonstop. I laughed at the Family Guy special. I laughed at the Robot Chicken thing, but like I don't know if I need 5 seasons of that.
All right, that's fair. Blast or stash it?
I'm going to stash it. I kind of like it because I enjoy Robot Chicken. I enjoy the humping robot that goes around to the dishwasher and the washing machine. And I could see some sort of like R2D D2 droid going around finding like land speeders to try to just ram into.
I can roll with that. You know what? This is what I say. I'm going to stash it for the streaming service and also give me a Gonk Droid, a Star Wars story to go along with it, okay? The third one we have is, if you're in the collectibles, Star Wars recently announced that they're going to have a new addition to the Classic Coin series. Darth Maul will be featured. Maul getting a lot of love here recently in the Star Wars world. Blaster stash it. These coins worth picking up for your collection?
Oh, I'd stash it for sure.
Oh, for sure. So if you had the money, you'd do it?
I'm going to blast it because I'm not a coin collector. but I do think it's a really cool piece of artwork, and I don't want to deter anybody from grabbing it for their own collection. I'm just not a coin guy.
For me, I'm going to blast it, but I think, like David said, I'm going to reiterate that if you're into collecting that kind of stuff,
yeah, I mean,
It's
then why
sharp.
not?
It is a sharp.
It looks sharp, but yeah.
It's a really gorgeous pin. Let's go ahead and jump now. That's Stashed or Blasted. Let's go ahead and jump into Staying on Target. It's a two-part question that we have this week. We're not really debating, more so discussing. And we're getting reports that all this rumor mill about Kathleen Kennedy in hot water and Kevin Feige coming over to be in charge of it, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
This is all over the place the
this
last
is
2 weeks.
Slash Film came out recently with a story really just debunking it because they asked Feige, that's like, what's going on here? He's like, no. He's like, I'm involved with Star Wars just as much as me going out into my backyard and playing with action figures. He is in charge of the MCU. He is not leaving.
It made me think of Dark Helmet and Spaceballs playing with those little action figures.
The thing about this is, if we were anywhere close to the truth on this, if any of these rumors were, Lucasfilm or Disney would come out and say something, but they haven't.
I don't think so. I think they would keep that very tight-lipped if they were considering a change of that magnitude, especially with what's coming out in the next 12 months with the Marvel Universe.
What do you say to the people who look at Kathleen Kennedy and say she should keep her job because she has made more than $4.5 billion for Disney in 4 movies? Why should she lose her job?
I don't think she should, but the gal is also 65 years old. She's had one heck of a career, and I could see her wanting to take a step back from being the head producer for or head director for Lucasfilm.
So you
what
seem
is her title there? What is
she's
her
the
title?
president.
President of Lucasfilm.
So it sounds like to me you're for her moving out.
So what I could see happening is them saying, "Listen, Kathleen, there's been some PR debacles. You haven't made the best choices in hiring. She's fired how many directors over the last 4 years trying to get out those movies?
At least 4. 3, and kind of had to make Gareth step aside.
So I could realistically see her finishing this trilogy that she started, getting through episode 9, maybe another standalone movie, and then her taking a step back and retiring. Maybe she goes into consulting for Lucasfilm because she has the experience. She has 40 years working with
The best of the best.
with the best of the
Spielberg
best, with Lucas.
exclusively.
So I could see. I don't necessarily see them saying, "Hey, Kathleen, goodbye." But I could see them saying, you have made a boat ton of money off us. Why don't you go enjoy it, wrap up what you're doing, and we'll get somebody else in here to take the helm and steer the boat when you're done.
Jesse, what do you think about this? Because we've spent so much time talking about Kathleen Kennedy's fault for this and Kathleen Kennedy. What about Bob Iger? Because if you think about the reports, it comes out that Lucasfilm wanted Solo to drop in December. They wanted to keep Star Wars in December. Disney said, we're moving the movie to May. We're going to bring it back and be a summer blockbuster. Well, the difference is it's a different movie climate now than it was in the 70s, early 80s, right? And even in the early 2000s, right? Because we had 2000, 2002, 2005. Bob is the one that said it has to be May. You're going to get money to fix the movie, but it has to stay in May. You're getting your marketing campaign cut. So shouldn't Bob Iger be taking some responsibility for the shortchanging of Solo, because it's a movie that deserved far more? I think that movie should have realistically made $700 to $900 million in theater. Don't think it was $1 billion movie, but it should have been at least double than what it did. Should have been better than Justice League, we'll say. Should Bob Iger take some of the fall?
I think yes. Again, especially in the last 2 weeks, the rumor mill has just been going, full speed ahead.
Yeah, it's going to mention it's not all official. None of it.
You
really
have
is.
to take when you're reading in that stuff, or you're looking at all the various YouTube videos that are out there. Take it with a grain of salt. Look at plausible, elements. I wouldn't say that Kathleen Kennedy is not guilty, but I wouldn't place the blame for some of the debacles that we have seen completely on her. I would actually look at, really, if anything, not actually looking at George Lucas's protege to control the story content, and that is Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
I feel if Filoni had been consulted more on these movies, I think we would have seen possibly movies a little bit closer to what maybe George had in mind.
Yep.
At the same time, I believe that Dave Filoni actually cares about the fan base. And that's going to sound really harsh probably to some of our viewers, but some of the comments that have been said just in interviews and, out there, by, Johnson and some of these actors and, everything, I can understand their frustration because they are being constantly attacked. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm attacking them, but at the same time, they keep throwing gasoline on the fire. Like they're not accepting the fact that there are people who are providing constructive criticism in a very professional manner, which I feel like I'm doing right now. But
look at how heated he's getting.
But some of the responses I'm being thrown into the what's been man baby, like that's frustrating because I care about this franchise because this was I was a bullied individual. So I care about this franchise because it gave me hope. It gave me, something to escape that.
I think it's a real problem to where you can't share your opinion and just have it out there.
Yeah.
And then someone can disagree with you, but there's still a respect. Like you and I don't see eye to eye about The Last Jedi on a few things, but that's the fun thing is we kind of have our opinion of where it should go. We're still going to respect each other. That's the thing. And I think that a fandom overall, I think we're focusing so much on what we don't like, but we really need to get together and celebrate what we love.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we emphasize the things that we do love. If I were to talk about The Last Jedi, what do I love? The scene with Leia and Luke. I mean, it comes right out to my mind.
Gosh,
I love that. We need to celebrate those moments. Okay, we did get those feel-good moments there. And so, I know that when I posted, I said something about The Last Jedi. I was kind of like live tweeting when I was watching Last Jedi. We got attacked for a few things that I said. I mentioned like the Reylo theory or whatever. Listen, you have your theory and stick to it. Don't disrespect someone else's. And what I love about the people that we have our Star Wars conversation with is it is so positive. There are so many great people that take time to watch our small Star Wars show, and we have such a healthy conversation. You go through the YouTube comments on our shows, you got Sheep Helpy on there, you have What Do I Know, you have all these different people that get on Andre 2.0, they get on there, and they're just sharing in depth what they love and what they think, and that's great. And we just wish that this little microcosm that we have right now could just explode and be like the fandom.
I mean, you point out like those really positive, like Hamill and Fisher, that moment there. For me, the strongest moment in The Last Jedi was Luke becoming one with the Force. That moment where you actually he's looking off into the sunset, and when I saw that in the theater, I saw 18-year-old Luke with his knee up. Up on the sand dune, looking off into the setting twin suns.
See, I hated that, but that's all right.
But like
I respect you.
No, but I mean, for me, it was cinematically, it was beautiful. Okay, I didn't think of that. Ryan Johnson did and his team. And that was a very beautiful scene, even if you didn't like it.
Nah,
Visually, it was
agree.
beautiful.
I still wish, though, I had a dream that the scene where Luke walks out there as a force projection and you see all of the walkers. I see in my dream he put his hand out and went, whew, and they all just crumbled. And then I woke up and I'm like, damn it. It's okay, though. It's fine. But see, look at that. Look at that exchange we had.
Yeah.
We're having a good time here. Just wish the yahoos out there could do the same thing because, and then I don't think that's being disrespectful either. There are some fans out there that are looking to start fights. Don't need to do that. It's a movie franchise. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Be constructive, about it. It's okay to have your view, but be professional, be non-toxic about it.
Well, I don't know if I don't know about professional. Just be a nice person. I don't know. Like it's a movie franchise, you know.
Try to look at both sides of the coin.
Absolutely.
Really,
So this kind of leads into the next point that I want to make here with staying on target is the fact that Bob Iger wanted May to be a big month for Disney because you had Infinity Wars and then you had this Star Wars movie, and if I'm in the boardroom, I'm probably thinking realistically we're going to make $2.5–3 billion because I'm thinking to myself, Infinity War has to make $2 billion, and because of the $1 billion success you had with Black Panther, and then you have a Star Wars movie. It's a shoo-in, right? Well, no, you poorly marketed it, and that's what you get. But there have been some comments about the standalone movies and being put on pause. What do you guys think? Do you think these standalone movies, these single shots, are we going to get these on the streaming service? Do you think that right now Disney's priority is the streaming service and all efforts are going to make sure that we have the best content there to convince you to spend $15, $20 to subscribe? Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
I think that they're going to throw everything they can at the streaming service, but I don't think they're going to put the movies on the streaming service. These movies cost, $500 million, $250 million, $250 million to make. They're not going to lose that much money by trying to put that on a streaming service where people are paying $10 a month. They're going to want to put that in the big screen. They're going to want to put it out there so people are paying $6, $12, $15, $18 a ticket, even more if it's on an IMAX or 3D. There's no way they're going to take something that big budget and put it on a streaming service.
What do you think, Jesse? I mean, what if they came to you and said, all right, so it's 2019 now. We're going to give you Jon Favreau's TV series. We're going to give you this animated parody show that, Jesse, you don't seem to like, but we're going to give it to you anyways because we got 5 seasons of it. And then we're also going to give you the Boba Fett standalone movie because we don't have the schedule to fit it in theatrically because we have at least 7 movies between Rian Johnson's Trilogy and Benioff and Weiss's series of movies. So the earliest you could get this movie is 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. 2026 is the earliest you could have this movie. Do you want to wait 6 or 7 years, or would you like to have it right when we debut the streaming service in 2019?
Well, obviously, if a confirmed Boba Fett movie, it'd be all over it. It didn't matter if it was in theaters or through the streaming service. That's just me personally. When looking at this, though, I could see it as a possibility that they would, it's in the theater, but afterwards, like a couple months down the line, it's basically how, it pops up on Netflix.
So if you're a member of the Disney streaming subscription community, you would have a week early or a month early access to that product, and then it would hit theaters?
No, not so much like that, but it'd be in theaters, 3 months goes by, and then you could, watch it on the Disney streaming.
Well, yeah, you already get that with Netflix.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think it's got to be a different strategy.
I can see that happening.
They've got to do something bigger and better than what Netflix is doing. Because again, they could have just bought out Netflix, didn't want to spend the money, thought it was more advantageous to start their own streaming service. If you're gonna start this trend of having too many streaming services out there, you're gonna have to come up with something big to convince Star Wars people like us to spend their money.
I don't think so, because I'm going to spend the money anyway. Because they're going to have at least one show that I'm going to want to watch. I theorize I can watch a television show in a month. It's worth picking it up for $7, $8, $10, $12 for 1 month. And if I don't like it, I can cancel it. And I can pick it up again when the next season comes out and watch it there. You and I in college would sit there and complain about nothing being on cable and how it'd be great if we could save money by only paying for the channels that we wanted. And this is how they're doing.
You remember the conversation?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm getting sentimental.
And so this David is literally what we spent 4 years in college asking for.
You're right.
And now they're giving it to us, and now we're complaining because we're spending $8 on Netflix and $10 on Amazon Prime, and now $10 on the DC service and $10 on Disney. I'm still at $40 right there just on the 4 streaming services, and I was paying $75 for cable when I dumped it. So even right there, even though every year I seem to be adding another $10 expense, I'm still saving $30 compared to when I had cable.
I think every point you just said is valid, and I have to agree with you now. With the 2 standalones that we have in limbo right now, because Lucasfilm has never confirmed the Boba Fett. Well, there was Josh Trank was set to direct originally, but we never got an official confirmation on Obi-Wan. Those are 2 movies that you'd want to see on the big screen. But if they wanted to go to a 2-movie-a-year schedule, I think the streaming service is their best option. I don't think you're going to have $1 billion success stories or $800, $900 million success stories with 2 movies a year for Star Wars, because I think it's just Star Wars fans aren't trained to expect every movie to build on itself. We still kind of go over here with our Star Wars movies.
I think that's maybe like I think we've discussed it in a couple, episodes back. They want that same thing that the Marvel universe has.
But they need to have a plan. They don't have a plan.
That took time. And at the same time, though, it's, again, this is all speculation, with all the standalone, films. Yes, the ABC News outlet basically said, hey, they're not canceled, but they're being re-examined.
Yeah.
More and more. So you guys were going a little more in depth on the Kevin Feige taking over Lucasfilm topic. I was doing some Googling, and I'm more on board with the fact I think that he's going to end up taking over Lucasfilm.
I don't think Feige will, because he still has Phase 4 coming out. They have Marvel movies at least the next 10 to 15 years. He's not going to leave that. He's making success story after success story, telling great stories. You said this even earlier today when we were talking.
And I made an argument like the last episode that I was on that this is not going to happen. I think we ended up releasing that as a Patreon.
Yeah.
So another reason to become a Patreon supporter. But just, he's 45 years old. He's been producing movies since Blade in 1998. That is 20 solid years of comic book movies. He's in a great place. He doesn't necessarily need to leave because he can coast this for the next 20 years until he retires. But I mean, I've been in my job for how long? And I get bored every couple of years, and thankfully they moved me into a new position. I'm sure you guys are the same way. So if you've been doing the same thing for 20 years, wouldn't you want a different challenge?
I mean,
here he can take over another franchise.
But we're not making hundreds of millions of dollars.
You could argue that his comment about being in the backyard playing with his action figures actually is another meaning for
storyboarding.
Because if he's that big of a fan to be in the backyard, playing, because I mean that's what I was doing with a kid. I didn't leave my action figures in the box. I'm sorry. I know, I know Dave's probably cringing over here because he's got Thrawn and nice.
Well, it just took me a while to find Thrawn.
Kevin Feige's contract with Marvel Studios is up at the end of Phase 3 here. So with the next Avengers movie that comes out next April, he's done. He has not re-signed yet, which means that maybe he could be taking a hop over somewhere else. Maybe this is a good time for Kathleen Kennedy to take her retirement, move Kevin over to this new franchise. He can get it back on track the way that Bob Iger wants it, and then Bob can find somebody who's been doing a lot with Marvel and move them up the food chain. And Bob Iger himself is 67 years old. By the time all of that changes, he'll probably retire at 68, 69, so he's got a year or two left to go. Michael Eisner retired when he was 63, I just Googled. So Bob Iger is well beyond that at this point. So I could see a lot of leadership changes coming up, and I could see that including Feige moving over to Lucasfilm.
My thing is, does the Fox deal change everything? Because now in the MCU, you will have the X-Men to play with.
He's done that, though. He's done that for 4 or 5
but
X-Men
not,
movies.
But not in this MCU.
Sandbox.
And would that be full circle for him? I mean, would he want to introduce the X-Men? He's already pulled off Spider-Man with Sony. So that would be interesting to see if he feels like he needs to follow that through. If that's not important to him, and he's just happy to see that the Fox merger happens and that they can bring, he might jump ship. I think it's interesting. I don't know who could take Kathleen Kennedy's job if she were to step back today. I don't know. I think you need to have a producer-type person doing logistics. I think you need a second person focused on storytelling and leading the storytelling group. And they need to have a more role, like Leland Shee, Pablo Hidalgo. You have Martin. You have all these people. They need to have a more role, not just like maintaining like canon continuity, but like they need to have a role in making these movies. That's why they should be there. One person can manage canon continuity. That's just my thought.
This is the thing: is you look back, they talked about the making of like The Force Awakens, and they brought in people like Kevin Smith, hardcore Star Wars nerd, Simon Pegg, who had a cameo as the junk dealer, 1 quarter ration, it's just like they bring in basically these super nerds of the original trilogy and everything, for a reason, because they want their viewpoint.
Yeah,
that's what made me excited about The Force Awakens, and then with The Last Jedi, it just kind of felt like a lot of that was discarded. It was. I have to agree. We saw a little bit more of Johnson's view, and that's fine. It's like I don't want a happy fairy tale. That's why I like Game of Thrones. That's a whole different thing. But I'm okay with losing characters. That's not a problem for me. But at the same time, though, it has to be done in a proper way. I don't think, we lost Han Solo, but what was, we really didn't see the ramifications. We didn't see the emotion on any of the the characters. Carrie Fisher bypasses Chewbacca and goes straight to Rey, who she's never met.
Right.
We don't really even get a scene with Chewie.
I think the point that we're trying to get to is that no matter what happens, a plan needs to be established. I think overall there needs to be a well outlined plan for Star Wars moving forward. Let us know what you think in the comments below. We're running a little long, just hit the hour mark, so let's finish things up strong with Fan Comlink. We got a question from our good friend and Patreon supporter, John Boffman. And by the way, if you want to support us on Patreon, more than welcome to do so. We're on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com//Beyond the Blast Doors and check us out there. I want to say thanks to everyone who is supporting us there. White Nova, Sheaf Palpy, John, just appreciate it all. John asks us if the Emperor and Vader had success turning Luke, what was Palpatine's plan for dealing with the rule of two? Do you think Vader considered that and it affected his decision to turn away from the dark side? We know in Empire Strikes Back, he invited Luke to rule as father and son. David, first off, great question, John. But if Luke had turned, if Vader was successful, how does this go?
I love this question because I used to think about this when I was a kid. In third grade, I hung out with Tom Hastings and Bobby West every day at recess in the reading corner, and we would talk about Star Wars stuff because we were nerds. And we would talk about this. And as a kid, I really thought that was one of the reasons why Vader saved Luke, was because, I thought that if Emperor had success in turning Luke, he would probably kill off Vader. So I thought that's why Vader would have saved Luke, because maybe, we'll just take out the Emperor, and then we can be the Emperor and do it that way. So that's what I thought as a kid, and I still kind of think that now.
Jesse, what do you think?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Lay it on me.
Okay. So, lately with the Vader comic series, we've been getting this reoccurring theme with Palpatine basically trying to kill Vader, like it seems like almost around every corner. Okay. Kind of think about that, and then think about this first question about Palpatine's plan with dealing with the rule of two here. Okay, so he's basically going, well, if Vader's really that strong, he'll kill his son. But if Luke turns, he'll because the dark side makes you more powerful, he'll probably kill Vader in this confrontation. Okay,
and he gets a stronger Padawan out of the deal.
Basically, yeah, he doesn't have to worry about. It's not like, I turn to the dark side, Dad. We good? We're good. And then they look at Palpatine. It's not going to happen like that. On the flip side of that, you move on to the later part of this question, is we know that Vader invited Luke, join me and we'll rule the galaxy. This has also kind of been a reoccurring theme throughout Star Wars. The Force Unleashed, Vader had the secret apprentice, and the whole point was to overthrow the Emperor. So even Vader, has been trying to basically seize power in his own way. So you do have these two conflicting,
Well, in fairness, the Emperor keeps trying to kill Vader too and test him. So
yeah. So the thing is if Luke turned, it's a question of, well, would Luke team up with Palpatine, or would he team up with his dad?
Right. I've always been in the mentality that Palpatine was always looking to get a stronger apprentice than Vader. When Vader failed on Mustafar, he was always trying to find the next best thing because he had half a man. He had
a robot.
Yeah, he had a torso. So he's always trying to find the next thing. We found out there's a son. He has that Skywalker blood. He clearly has the strength. What you see at the end of The Last Jedi, clearly the man had mastered the Force. He not just became one, he was one with the Force, right? Even as a living being. So I always felt that you had a good chance of Luke losing control of his rage, killing Vader in that confrontation on Cloud City, or that he would become so empathetic to his father for having fallen from grace and wanting to try and redeem him. Ultimately, he would have felt, I need to team up with my dad now to take down the Emperor, and then I'll have a chance at redeeming my father. Which is not what you get in the expanded universe. What you get there is Luke actually goes to the dark side sometime after Return of the Jedi with experimentation and has to come back. Either way, I think like Elseworlds Star Wars telling, that'd be really fun to explore. So I think that was an awesome conversation. I think that was a great question. John, thank you so much for sending that in. And of course, if you have a Star Wars question or a theory that you want us to talk about in FanCom Link, all you have to do is tweet us with a question and say, talk about this during FanCom Link, okay? It's just as simple as that. Episode 40 of Beyond the Blast Doors in the books. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Beyond the Blast Doors. Also find us on Patreon. You're watching here on YouTube. Would love to know what you think about us getting back on iTunes. It has been suggested by a few people. I think a lot of people like the YouTube format. Do we need to go back on iTunes? It's a question that I want to ask you. Let us know down in the comments below. Based on all the questions that we've asked you during the show, we should have like 100 comments. We need to have 100 comments on this episode. Let's make it a big deal. Let's have a fun conversation. That's going to do it for us, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure. And we'll see you next week. Maybe we can catch Solo one more time before it leaves the theaters.
Maybe.
All right. Sounds good to me. We'll see you soon. May the Force be with you.